Hi, I'm Gary.
I'm Mark.
I'm Luke.
And together we're watching the SEGA Lounge. Oh, God.
Luke, too slow.
Luke, honestly.
I think that went perfectly, to be honest. I think that was great. Hello and welcome to the SEGA Lounge, everyone. This is episode 283. I'm KC, your host, and this is the podcast that's all about SEGA, the games, the music, the community, and all things in between. This week, I'm really happy to have as guests Mark Webley and Gary Carr, founders and studio heads over at 2 Point Studios, and Luke Finlay-Maxwell, lead designer on 2 Point Museum. Gary and Mark are proper industry legends, having worked on games such as Theme Hospital, Theme Park, the Fable series. Luke's vision of a museum management sim was instrumental in shaping 2 Point Museum into the great game it is. So we cover their start in the video game industry, what led to the creation of 2 Point Studios, their management sim games, and what we can still expect from 2 Point Museum going forward. Grab a packet of cheesy gubbins and a can of burp, sit back, and enjoy this very fun chat. Hello, hi, Mark. Hello, Luke. Hello, Gary. Welcome to the SEGA Lounge. Very, very nice. Very pleased to have you here on the show for the first time to talk about 2 Point Studios, to talk about 2 Point Museum. It's very nice to have you. And I usually start our interviews with people who are new to the show. We usually start from the very beginning. So I usually have two questions that I'll leave it to you to be as brief or as detailed as you want. How did you start, or how did you get involved with video games and in the video game industry? Okay, so it's up to you to be as brief or detailed as you like.
Let's start way back when with Gary. Well, before on Punch Tape, was it your first video game?
Funnily enough, I'm not the oldest person.
No, he's not. I'm not the first in video games.
Yeah, I did start a little earlier. I started in the mid-'80s, and I left art school having made 4 films, 2 animated films, 2 live-action films, to try and get work in the movie business or TV work. And I went to work for a film company called Palace Films, but they put me in the games division. I didn't know much about computer games at the time. I used to play in the arcades a little, but I didn't have a home computer system, so I didn't know there were games companies even in the UK. I thought it was a kind of a US or Japanese thing. So I went into the games division because they said I could do more things because I would be less junior, and that's how it started for me.
Yeah, and for me, I went to university, did maths and computing, and I wanted to do a creative job, but I ended up doing accountancy software. So then I worked with a friend who actually works here, Alan, on a demo, which we eventually presented to Bullfrog, thinking, it'd be cool if they took it on and we got to make this game. But no, it didn't happen at all. But I got offered a job, and then eventually Alan joined the company as well. So that was my first job in the games industry. Anyway, that's how I got in. And Luke?
Yeah, mine's not as exciting as you guys. I just always wanted to be in games. Went to uni, did a games course. We ended up making a procedurally generated horror game, which did really well. It got picked up by like PewDiePie and Markiplier and all those kind of people. We were like, this is really easy. I can't believe we've done that. Let's start a company. And then I did that for a bit and realized we were actually just very lucky. And then running a company and doing kind of games like that was much harder. And then yes, we did that for a couple of years, and then I ended up getting a 3D job at a place called PlaySport, making caravans. So that was pretty cool. And then eventually moved into design, and then gone through various different companies. But yeah, so that was kind of my start.
Okay, so that's the second half of the question. You all answered the second half. But I also wanted to ask how you got into video games themselves. If you were gamers before getting into the industry or not. How did you learn about games? So maybe let's start with Luke now. Maybe this time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, I can't remember a time when I wasn't playing games. To be honest with you, I used to draw little pictures of. Did anybody ever play Abe's Odyssey? I used to draw little 2D levels on paper. Just did that like all day, really. And still do, yeah. Just whack it open every so often, just to have a little scribble. No, but yeah, just always loved games. Always played them. Just haven't really remembered a time when I wasn't playing them, to be honest. And yeah,
Excellent.
my parents were always just like, yeah, if you want to keep playing, and that was it, really.
Great parenting. Yeah, good job.
For me, probably for you as well, Gary. I mean, the only games I got to play was down the arcades. So that was you go down the arcades, and I grew up in Folkestone, a seaside town.
Scarborough for me, seaside town, yeah.
So there was always arcades on the seafront. You go down there, and there was gambling machines, and there were video games. And I quickly learned that the video games were the fun things. But I mean, we didn't actually have any home computers. And my brother got a ZX Spectrum, and I had to play on that. I didn't really do programming, but I typed in some programs, played a few games on that, and that was fun. So that was my first exposure to computer games.
I can keep it short. It's exactly the same as Mark. When you grow up by the coast, seaside town, you go play in the arcades, and that's what I did as well. So,
well, I guess soon we actually had going into pubs. About 16. They had the Space Invaders tabletop machine, which was great as well. Yeah,
I played Space Attack, which was the knockoff version of Space Invaders, but I thought was better.
It's because you were younger.
Yeah, I was younger. You're right. So, I used to play in a cafe. I couldn't get into pubs at that point. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So arcades for you guys. Excellent. Because this is the Sega Lounge, right? Any Sega related memories from the arcades, by the way? Any specific game you remember that Sega made that you enjoyed?
I can tell you when I first worked on a Sega title.
Okay.
And that was quite early. It was on the Master System. So that dates me a little. Yeah. And I worked on a conversion of Xenon 2 onto the Master System. So, and that would have been, I'm going to guess, around about 1988, something like that. So, but in the arcades back then, I think I did this. I think the earliest one I can remember was the submarine one.
Yeah, that's which we put into Theme Hospital.
Yeah, that used to be down the arcades for me. And I suppose the big games I remember when I wasn't in the industry at the time, but still earliest things like Space Harrier, and games like that. So they were ones that really sort of were quite.
The ones I remember memorable. Certainly down the arcade weren't Sega ones. There were things like Pac-Man and stuff like that, and Boot Hill. But yeah, I guess Sega were in the arcades then, were they?
They were, yes. Yeah. But the ones that, again, in the industry, but really important for coin-op is things like, obviously,
definitely.
Outrun, Crazy Taxi.
Oh, yeah, Outrun was a bit later. But
Space Harrier.
Space Harrier, Hang On, Afterburner.
Hang On. Those were, and Super Hang On, they were really... The other thing Sega did more than a lot of the other coin-ops were they had the bigger machines. They made them more like rather than you just using a joypad or a joystick. They built the car, they built the bike, they built
that's true.
The machine that the main character was meant to be.
I feel like you're getting more for your money.
You were. I mean, they were very much the high-end arcade machines back in the day.
Yeah, you felt like you were in the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent.
Luke, you're a child. You must remember them actually on gaming machines.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. This is all like, what? What did you did this? No.
What is an arcade?
Yeah, I can't remember my first Sega game. I remember playing a lot of Sonic as a kid. I was a big Tails fan. But yeah, I don't have a big
what
arcade.
About Echo the Dolphin and things like that?
Do you know what? Yeah, Echo the Dolphin was great. I did like Echo the Dolphin.
We
Okay,
wanted
cool
to
as well.
Echo into one of the arcades, into one of the aquariums in the museum.
What was amazing
Yeah.
in our days at Bullfrog, when EA bought Bullfrog, they had a huge collaboration with Sega back then, and the best thing about, for me anyway, not for you, Mark, because you probably did better out of it than I did, but when EA bought Bullfrog, we all got a Master System, a Mega Drive, Sega Mega Drive,
and loads of cartridges,
and loads of games.
EA were doing a lot of,
so that was another introduction to Sega. We all got this fantastic games machine with loads of great games on it. So there were things like Jungle Strike, and there was
they were good,
and the Madden games and the NFL games. So there were some great titles. In fact, my biggest complaint of Sega, this is possibly not what you're wanting to hear on your channel.
No, I like this. I like the dirt. Yes,
the Mega Drive was the best machine, right? The best machine at the time, and then you went away from it for a while. So, no, I thought the Mega Drive was fantastic, and it was a great time for gaming. It was around about 95, I think. Yeah, and it was just
I grew up with the Mega Drive, definitely. Yeah, so I was born in '84, so and the Mega Drive was my sort of. I think I had another like an Amiga something maybe, but I don't an Atari something. But I don't really remember it as much as I remember my first Mega Drive and my first games.
I think it was the first the first game console which felt like it was competing with the arcades. With resolution and frame rate and all that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, like bringing the arcade games to your house,
exactly.
To home. Yeah. That's exactly it. Very good. And by the way, I know Mark and Gary, you were here to talk about 2 Point and the games, but I was doing some research on your credits, and you guys mentioned some games that I don't have on my list. So maybe this is not really like the full list, but you have worked on a lot of amazing games that people consider classics as well, right? Apart from the theme series that obviously led to what we have now as well, but games like series like Fable and Black and White and other things. They are too many to mention. So, how do you look at the industry, the video games industry now, when compared to when you first started, or when you were working on these other amazing series? Has it really changed that much?
I think it has. It's changed vastly. I mean, we went to an award ceremony, came home empty-handed, but there was so many people there, and you kind of think it's a small industry, but it's vast, and just didn't know anyone there. But I think there's a lot. I guess as industries get more professional, there's more. I mean, when we started, there wasn't such a thing as a designer or a producer. You just kind of make it with a group of people, and
somebody may be a programmer, somebody may be an artist, someone's both sometimes, and you just had a small team. And one of the things when we started 2 Point was Mark and I had, through games like Fable, which was a big title, you were working in teams of 300-400 people, and we bubbled, if you like, to the management at that point. And we were very much on the periphery of doing what we used to love doing, which was making the games. So one of the things 2 Point was about was to kind of go back to making games. So we kind of, I think, booked the trend of people growing into bigger studios and thinking, let's go big. We actually intentionally went small. We wanted to do something more indie and boutique, because even though we'd done bigger things, we felt that there's the cadence of a release seemed too long, and our proximity to the decision making was being further pushed out by management.
We're kind of making management decisions rather than game decisions.
And,
you kind of got into the industry because you love making games, and to be able to get back to that with 2 Point is fantastic. But kind of talking about how the industry's changed, we need designers now because there's so much to think about. Games are so, so convoluted, so big. I mean, you need 3D artists, you need animators. On Theme Hospital, Gary pretty much did all the art and all the animation. And I had a couple of programmers with me, but I did a lot of the programming. And you kind of think, well, could you do that now? Yeah, but it would probably be like Theme Hospital. And you kind of look at the games that we're all making now, and they're amazing. You look at things like Call of Duty, and you think,
we can't compete
my
with that.
God, that's incredible.
I mean, and there's the really
as well, right?
stuff. Those kind of, one-person team games, we weren't going to do that either, because I think that is a different...
That require us to be a lot more
talented than we are, We had to find the middle ground, of not being talented enough to be that small, and definitely not good enough to do those big high-end games either.
Okay.
No, I mean, seriously, the 2 Point thing was that it was basically indulgence on our part to try and go back to sort of making games. But we needed really good people around us. So people like Luke to come in and support us on that journey.
And I think also, just talking about the industry generally, we've now got mobile games. And although I do play mobile games, I think there's a lot of it that's not great. It's there's a lot of stuff, and we're making stuff that we want to play
ourselves,
and we love, and you put so much into it. So a free-to-play game is a whole new mindset, which we've not grown up with. So don't know how to make them, don't know how to, how do you give something away free and then make sure you rinse as much money out of people. So I think that's something which has changed, and I'm not sure I'd love to just accidentally make an amazing free-to-play game, but we like to see the creativity. And just talking about the one-man bands making indie games, that's where you see some real creativity. They've got nothing to lose, and they do something completely wacky, and you think, oh my God, that's brilliant. It's just I love it.
Luke, you've done a little bit you've probably got more experience of the proper small studio startups, right? You've done 1-2 people development, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very similar to what you guys, in the old days were doing, right? You kind of, everyone is doing multiple things, right? Like I was, when it was just me and and one other in that kind of startup, I was doing art, design, he was doing code, you sort of just band together, right? But I think there was a bit of an indie boom probably like 10 years ago where it felt like anybody could just, get a couple of people together, get something on Steam and make something. I think that's probably less now. I think, people have started to capitalize on that, and it's shrunk a bit, but there was definitely a period, and it was in mobile as well, right? I don't know if you guys were dipping your toes into mobile around that time when Flappy Bird was around, but it sort of felt anybody could make a hit, right? What was that, sorry?
No, to be honest, it's never been our area. I mean, Mark was
you couldn't get it on your Nokia. Yeah.
No, I think the difficulty is, Mark's right. When we make games, we kind of think, well, if people pay for it, then the only thing we have to do is make something entertaining. But if you make something and you're trying to work out how you're going to monetize it, I think it always compromises your thinking of a design. You're thinking, oh, right, at this point, surely we should be trying to get money off people. And I don't really like that. Not because I'm against people that do that. It's just, it isn't something I can imagine designing or working on. It's just, it's a difficult discipline, and we've never done it, have we?
No, but I mean, there are games like Clash of Clans, which, we've been playing for years and they're still playing now, which is at its heart a really good game.
Yeah, and absolutely.
If you don't want to ever spend any money, that's absolutely fine. So they kind of got, I guess they've got so many people playing it. It's, I guess, same with Fortnite, where they can give it away free, and I guess a lot of people don't actually pay any money, but there's enough stuff in there that just makes people want to,
part with their cash.
Buy that.
And there's always someone who's gonna want to pay for things, for cosmetic items and things like that. So you'll eventually get your money back. If we're talking about one of those big games, right?
Yeah. But I think one thing that I know this wasn't the question you asked, but one of the things I think free to play games has done is educate us on how to retain people. We used to make games and go, okay, play it for 20 hours, 30 hours, fine. But now we make games and think how we're going to keep people playing our games and staying with us. And we do combinations of free content, and we have built a community relationship, and we listen to our community's feedback and try and utilize that and build that into our experiences. So I think that's come from the free to play space rather than from the premium space. So everything helps each other, right? Everything helps us
I think
evolve.
players expect that now, don't they? I think that's part of the change of the landscape. I think people want to buy, like, invest in a game, right? They go, I bought this, I want to be able to play that for like 5 years and see meaningful changes and improvements, which is kind of what we're trying to do with Museum, right? But just that sense of, oh yeah, I've bought something and that's going to grow over time, and I'm gonna come back to that in a couple of months, and there'll be something cool for me.
That's a really good point, right? Because now we have things like the Fortnites of this world, or the Robloxes, or whatever, and they're more like platforms than actually just games, right? So you can expect a lot of different variety and things to, and like, things are constantly changing. They're adding content all the time, and people don't just like my and I guess your generation, Luke. We were used to buying a game, playing it to completion. Okay, let's move on to the next one. People are more expecting to like stay focused on one game for a long period of time, or a longer period of time. And that's especially true for this kind of game that you guys are working on, right?
Definitely. I think if you, you got one.
Go, Luke.
No, I was just going to say, I think if you look at the strategy landscape at the moment, even games like Civ, they're experimenting with, in Civ 6, it was like not a battle pass, but like a kind of a 6-7 month roadmap to having constant content coming in, some of it free, some of it not. And, previously Civ's been very much like, right, you get that, you get 2 expansions, bish, bash, bosh, done, right? And if even they're experimenting with stuff, I think that's kind of saying something for the strategy landscape in general, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So
not quite as eloquent as Mark, but well done, Luke.
Okay, so that's, I think, a nice segue into we talked about like what has been changing in the landscape of video games. So Mark and Gary, you decided to found 2 Point Studios, work on the games like closely again. Why did you decide to go with, first of all, Hospital, like harkening back to your theme Hospital days, right? Why that, when you guys worked on so many different series and so many different genres, I guess? Why strategy games? Why Hospital?
I think the Little People management sim games was always going to be on the cards. If we were going to do anything, it would be that. So we'd worked very closely on 2 Point Hospital. We worked on the movies, which was a Lionhead game. And we loved making these. And it was definitely a bullfrog kind of game. But, we did Fable. Fable was fantastic, really successful. We became part of Microsoft. And so Fable became really important. We kind of left those games behind, and we, when we went our separate ways, you went off to Mucky Foot, I went to Lionhead. We were kind of say, we should do another game sometime.
And of course, you were doing Black and White, and I was doing Startopia at the time, so we were still making those. We had more skin in that type of game than say Fable, which I believe was, of course, we were very much part of Lionhead. Mark was a founder of Lionhead, so the ownership was there, but there's no way I could put my hand up and say, I'm one of the kind of founding fathers of the Fable franchise. I wasn't. I actually only worked on one, if I'm honest, which was the Kinect version. But we were always very invested in these Little People games, and something Mark and I, it was just where we wanted to be. And when Lionhead was basically thrown in full in on Fable, I think it always felt a little bit like we'd lost something, because that's kind of the heritage. The God games is something we've had a lot of experience in. So it was, for us, if we were going to do something again, we very much wanted to do something we felt we believed in.
So, and I think getting a deal and starting a company is really tough. And I think starting off with Hospital just kind of made it a bit easier because we kind of had a heritage. We had something we could convince people that we knew how to make and we could do.
Unfinished business a little bit.
Yeah, so it's kind of, that was a great starting point, and really it was the springboard for us to do campus and then and museum and then and the stuff that's going to come in the future as well. So that's if we were going to do it, it made sense to do that. I mean, I guess we didn't necessarily know it was going to go as well as it has done.
No way did we think it. I mean, I kind of felt, let's just have one more go at something. Let's get in the saddle one more time and have a few more years of fun. I didn't expect this anywhere near the success. And actually, the people that we found were the real, I think that's been the real magic, that the people that came with us in the early days when we were unable to pay them anywhere near what they were worth. I mean, literally, these people were 30-year-in vets who had families and they were all with mortgages and everything. And they came on board when really they should have gone to another big company who would have snapped them up. And then post that, people like Luke and Joe who've come along and just made a big difference, I think, to 2 Point, because it isn't the original people who are the magic. It's the people that have come along in the last 10 years that have really bought into what we do and actually made it a much better place. We're a far better company now than we were when we started.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's really nice to hear. Yeah, that's a really great answer. Really great answer. But yeah, I agree. Right? I remember back when 2 Point Hospital was announced, the hype behind, these are the people who worked on Theme Hospital. So it did make sense to start with that, right? But before we really get into 2 Point Museum, please explain the reasoning behind Hospital Campus Museum. Because there must be a reasoning behind this decision, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've actually got quite a big list of games that we'd quite like to make, and we kind of every now and then we sit down and we kind of go, we like this idea, we like that idea. Luke's
part of it now. Yeah, he's in our inner sanctum.
Yeah, what are you going to do next, Luke? And it's like, I like the idea of that one. So I think Hospital made sense. I think when we were a small indie there making Hospital, we kind of knew by the time we finished and shipped the game, we wouldn't have any money coming in. Yeah. So we had to sign up our next game with SEGA, or for them to go, no, we're not interested, and then we maybe tout it around, see if we could find another publisher. And I think Ben Huskins suggested a school simulation.
Yeah, it didn't. I know it didn't come from me, and I can't remember if it came from you. But I know it would have come from either Ben or you at that point, because there wasn't anybody else probably in the decision making. But museum's an interesting one because there's a bit of a strange synchronicity between us coming up with that idea, which I think we should credit Ben Heimers for. We were actually going to do a different game, and Ben suggested that we basically jettison that game and drop in a different game, and we called it a saga initially. Yeah, it was meant to be a smaller game. We weren't going to do something as big as Museum as eventually became. It was going to be a simpler game. And then Luke, coincidentally, had done a Hospital game, museum game. Sorry, excuse me, that's my senior moment coming out there. So we were looking for a new designer anyway, and you had experience, Luke. I mean, explain what
Ben and I had interviewed Luke while we were making
This is Huskins, right? We've got multiple Bens.
Yeah, we've got multiple Bens. So we'd interviewed Luke, and we thought he'd be brilliant, but we were still making Campus. We didn't really know what we'd use him for. So he was kind of there in the background, and then the idea for a museum game came out, and then Luke, over to you. you did
Yeah. So when I started that small 2-man studio with a friend, we did a lot of mobile stuff, but we also we were big strategy fans, always have been, and we always wanted to make a tycoon kind of style game.
Mhm.
And we kind of were like, yeah, I think a museum would be quite fun. We're not really seen that. And so we got to like an alpha stage where you could have guests coming in, they'd donate. We had like an auction system. We had a sort of expedition system as well, but it wasn't anywhere near what 2 Point Museums is. And it got to a couple of streamers, and some people thought it was quite cool. But then, we kind of had to just close down the studio. It's 2 of us. Close down the company because it just wasn't financially viable. So we kind of had almost like a little pre-production bit there, right, where we could test out things, see what works, what didn't. And then I went off to work at PlaySport, which actually made another Sega game, Motorsport Manager.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was very odd, and I always think about like just how mad it is that you guys were just down the road, and I ended up being able to work on a museum game in the end, because I never thought that would happen again. It was sort of like that was a really cool thing to work on, but oh well, move on. And then you guys down the road, and you guys were also thinking about it, and just an absolutely crazy coincidence.
We're based in Farnham, and once Luke joined us, he told us, "Oh, this is where I went to college, Farnham." So he did the UCA in Farnham.
It's always meant to be, Luke.
You were never going to get very far away from Farnham.
It is weird. It's stuff like that where you just like, I don't even know how like that even happened. It's just crazy.
That's amazing.
I think the thing when you say how do we get to things, I think we're very inclusive anyway. There isn't really one particular strong voice. We've worked with so many people. We've worked with for so long. It would be crazy to have a hierarchy, really. And generally, we've always wanted it to be a fairly flat org, so people can come in. I mean, Luke's not a noob now. He's been around the studio for years, but when he was, I think you felt confident to, after time, we were comfortable that Luke should drive the vision along with us. And I think if he'd have had to work his way up, we wouldn't have got there. So in a lot of companies, the problem is you get somebody blocks you, somebody who sits above you doesn't want you to be allowed a voice in them. That doesn't happen at 2 Point. We have we all work in an open studio. We all can, tell if something is good or not good usually, and we can all speak. So that gives everybody an opportunity to feed into what we do. So
I think we avoid all the sort of politics of trying to climb up, because there's nowhere else to go.
There really is no.
Once you're here, that job you got, that's yours forever.
We've actually recently got HR, and Joanna, our HR person, says you've got to stop saying that in the interview process, because it doesn't sound good to say there's no career progression. But at the end of the day, we're here to make games, right? And that is it. I mean, we're not here to put rockets on the moon. We're here to make good games, and that is it. Bottom line.
Well, I think it is interesting. You start. It happened to us. You kind of start off doing not a lowly job,
which is why you say it.
You're programming and you're doing art, and then suddenly you're leading the team, and then you've got a whole studio within
and you're doing management one-to-ones.
Hang on, we have nothing to do with the games.
This was the thing that happened. But when Mark started running Lionhead with Peter, and I started running Mucky Foot with 3 other guys, that was the last time until 2 Point that I was actually a content creator on a game, building stuff. I was still involved with some design work. I did little bits on the periphery, but because you're in management meetings all the time or discussing publishing deals,
there's no time.
You're just not making games anymore. So the whole point of 2 Point is to say we're just the game now. We're not trying to build an empire here. We're just trying to make a good game. And if you make a good game, you'll be successful, hopefully. But it isn't about growing it into some monolithical, huge corporation. It's not what we want to do.
Okay. That said, it looks like, and so I'll be honest, I haven't played Campus. I played Hospital. I played Museum. And going from Hospital to Museum, it feels like a much bigger thing. I don't know if that's what you feel like as well, and that's the reception that you're getting. So even if you're not like trying to send rockets to the moon or grow an empire, but it looks like you're like making things better and bigger every time.
Yeah. I think in every single aspect of making hospital to campus to museum, we've tried to, every time we kind of go, what can we do better? There's the technical side of stuff, there's the stuff under the hood, but then there's the game systems as well. And then sort of bringing you, Luke, you work very closely with Ben Huskins, and Ben Huskins was lead designer on the first two games with us. So I think just building on how do we have a less linear game with movies? So we certainly started off with a bunch of things that we wanted to do better. And
I mean, we were ground zero with Hospital. We had literally less than 2 years to start the game, launch the game, because that was our contract with SEGA. We promised them a game within 2 years. We were paid by milestone deliverables. So if we took too long, we didn't get any more money. So we were from a point where we had literally not a line of code to shipping the game in 23 months. And we built upon that, of course. So with that came Campus, and with Campus came Museum. That's not to say we're not better because we haven't got better people, but there was definitely building blocks that we could stand upon to make Museum an improvement. And that's hopefully how it's going to work for all our future games, that they're all going to be incrementally an improvement on the previous one.
Yeah,
we hope.
Yeah, Luke, I mean, you coming to this as an outsider, kind of our first game that you worked on, what kind of, have you got any sort of thoughts on that? I guess you had a base, and it was basically just you and Swanee, I guess, with Husky, just building the very early prototype. So,
yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like, as you were saying, we're getting incrementally better. And I think everyone in the studio wants to make a great game. And I think the key is everyone wants to make a better game than the last. Like there is just in the DNA this desire to be like, oh yeah, we could do that better, right? We could try this thing, or what didn't work. We did a huge postmortem on Museum, and we looked at, what we could do better, what we could not. I think we're always looking to just see what the next better version of that is, right? But yeah, when I joined, sat down with Swanee and Husky, and we had regular meetings, Mark, about what the core loop of this could be, and what were the great bits of Campus and Hospital, and what were the things we wanted to explore. Like I think, for example, in Campus, you guys really wanted to look at the student relationships and make those a big part of that flow. And then in Museum, we kind of were like, well, that was really cool. Maybe we could make that work on the staff instead of the students. And so that's kind of how your staff members get illnesses and injuries, and there's like a very big training system in Museum as well. So there's lots of things from Campus that we picked and we said, let's see if we can expand them and improve them, and then wrap it in this whole new loop where you're doing expeditions. And we kind of knew, I mean, we always get the number wrong, right? But we kind of knew the expedition system was going to be a big USP, and we kind of blocked out, I think it was like 12 iterations, like just blocks of time in the schedule where it's like, we don't know what it's going to look like, but we know we need to improve it. And so,
I think the first expedition system, Luke, was click on a button.
That's literally it. It was a timer. It was just, you click a button, wait 30 seconds.
Think you're allowed to count that idea. I think anybody could have had that idea. Sorry. I was just going to say, add to that, Luke. The other thing I think you have to remember was that with 2 Point Hospital, there was a little bit of a nostalgia legacy play there. And we very much wanted to stay true to something we'd worked on and felt was in our kind of DNA. And then we wanted to literally draw a line under that and think, well, we're not now looking backwards, we're looking forwards. So in a sense, we were kind of slightly keeping Hospital within a framework. In fact, we had two influencers in the other day who have been creating content around our games for years. And I said, which is your favorite of the three? And this one said, it's 2 Point Hospital. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, it's harder, which is true. It was very much And the other thing is that I was a big fan of Theme Hospital. So I kind of think we were doing that for a certain, what we thought was an audience. But our audience now is our audience, not a old audience. So Luke has very much not been trying to hop back. He's been looking forward to what we do now for people that have never heard of something we may have made in the 90s. So I think that's the difference.
That
I think
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more freedom for Luke to think within his own kind of design scape.
And by the way, Luke, so you had worked on a museum game before. What is it about museums that you think evidently museums make for a good game or museum management?
Yeah, he's got no other ideas.
They've got it. They've got me locked down.
Okay. Oh no, there's no more games after 2 Point Museum.
2 Point Museum 2, any chance, Luke?
Hear me out, guys. Great idea. I think the thing about the museum is, and me and Ben Huskins have talked about this a lot. It's you can fit so many different themes into a museum, right? Like in the base game, we have aquariums. You know, guests come in, they want to see something cool, they'll donate money. That loop is just very compelling, and so it gave us this foundation of guests are going to come in and see something cool. And then what are they going to see and how are they going to react to that? And what do you need to do as a player to make that theme interesting? That can just go, forever in theory, right? Like we've just announced Zooseum, which is, animals, right? And trying to get, animal breeding and all these other interesting animal mechanics in. But the thing that I think really excited us was you've got that core loop, the foundation's fun. Now we can just go crazy with every theme and see what we do. For example, you can be managing fish in one museum, and then in the next one, you've got spirits, and they can break out and terrorize guests, and you can find haunted paintings and things like that. And so the scope of what the player has to learn and kind of what they need to do in each museum can just vary massively. And I think that was what was really exciting to me, really. I don't know, Mark and Gary, if you've got any thoughts on that.
All I'd add to that is that I went to a pencil museum a couple of years ago. So if you can go to a pencil museum, you
don't
can go
ruin
to a
the
museum
DLC.
about anything. So basically, it's a great vessel for making whatever you want in a business simulation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, talking about earlier, you were saying how do you go from one to the next, and we often found that when we did Theme Hospital, we became part of EA during that, and all the EA execs were going, hospital, really? And we were trying to sort of make it sound sexy, and we were going, it's like like ER, ER was all very sexy on telly, and they're going, yeah, but this isn't like ER, is it?
By the way, for our younger viewers, that was a TV show in the early
our younger viewers won't even know what Theme Hospital was. So
that's a good point. Yeah, look it up.
A mundane kind of subject, hospitals and then universities and then museums as well. They're kind of, but they're also things that I think people, they know how they work, or they think they know how they work. You go in, you get diagnosed, you get cured, or you don't. And university, you go there, you're going to learn subjects, and you'll graduate, or you won't. You have your social time there, see bands, blah blah blah, fall in love. And then, of course, museums, people go off, find things, put them in museums, and you go and visit it. And they're kind of loops that probably the reality is quite different when you kind of find out what on earth goes on in these places. But it's something you can kind of put to somebody and they go, oh, yeah, I know how this works. Whereas I kind of think, some other subjects, not that we wouldn't go there, but things like sci-fi and like space stations, you've got to kind of go, this is how this works. And sometimes that's a bit complicated. I mean, just the mechanics, of course.
Probably people would be more like, they would be more demanding on, this has to be accurate, or this has to respect what I know about sci-fi from all these sci-fi shows. So you're making stuff up.
I mean, you are sort of adding to a more complicated and well-populated space, but for me, one of the things that was interesting when we started, Theme Hospital was that we were going to do a realistic-ish simulation around hospital welfare and hospital management. And then we really struggled to think about how we could gamify that in a way that would be compelling.
When we looked into it, we found that medicine's quite complicated.
Yeah. We're not doctors and scientists and all those kind of things.
Wasn't as easy as we thought.
It's not as easy. But I think what was quite interesting was when we started playing with humor, and we were making games that had humor involved before, but not quite to the same way as Theme Hospital had. So we used humor as a way to, if you like,
our stupidity.
But it kind of elevated it into a way that something as mundane as medical welfare, or as mundane as schools, or as mundane as even museums can be, although I don't think Luke would agree. The idea of these dryish subjects, then if you twist them, as we tend to do, it makes those it kind of gives it a bit more of a flourish, because we're taking something out of the ordinary into the extraordinary, because our ideas are never based on reality. I mean, nothing in our museum is that close to real, and nothing in our hospital was that close to medical welfare. So it actually helped punctuate what we was doing, I think, the design and the visuals. Sorry, Luke, go on.
Say that.
You want to say something?
Say that. Yeah, you say that, Gary. But we got, I think it was somebody from the Natural History Museum. We got a consultation with them, didn't we? We got to sit down and we showed them our sort of like, we've got people that work in a workshop and we have experts and assistants, and they were kind of like, this is pretty close. It's not that far off. Like
we've had people in medical welfare tell us that actually I used to play this game. It's so close to the reality. We went, no, it can't be really close to reality. We made all this rubbish up.
The whole reason I became a doctor was to do things I saw in your game.
We have had that. We had the British Medical Institute contact us when we were making Theme Hospital. And they said, look, we're having our end of year conference. Could you do a version of your game for our conference so we can actually play it against each other? And we were like, well, sorry, it takes a long time to write software, but why would you want to play something as unrealistic as Theme Hospital? But they were genuinely interested in using it as a training tool.
Okay. That's amazing. So you touched on something that I think is important for people not really familiar with your games to understand the sense of humor behind these games. And humor is a big part. So, for example, Luke, as a designer, how important do you think baking humor into these games is for the games to be more enjoyable, to be more, I don't know, and also accurate and true to 2 Point Studios' vision, right?
I just don't think, I think the magic of 2 Point is that the humor allows you to abstract the game to where it would almost be accurate. So, we're at that level of abstraction, for example, with museum, where we can go to the Natural History Museum and they kind of go, yeah, that's kind of how it works. But if you remove the humor, you have to go deeper, and then you start getting into the weeds of, well, there's just no way we can model this, right? And I genuinely don't think you could make a museum game without humor, because I think you're either going to be really, really dry, or you're going to have to go way deeper into the systems. And then I think the deeper you go, just you're not making a game anymore, right? You're kind of just making a simulation. So I think that's why the 2 Point games work so well, is because we have the humor and we go, we're just going to take this at a high level and focus on the systems. We can get the sense of it through, and the player can feel like they're doing that without actually really having to simulate, a campus or a hospital. I don't know, Mark, do you think that's kind of fair to say?
I think that's right. I mean, we're making quite complex machines with our games, and we've always said we want something that's approachable but deep. So it's the people that people that don't necessarily think they like simulation games could hopefully look at one of our games, and go, oh, this doesn't look intimidating, and then we kind of trick them into it. And I think the humor thing is something that I think it came quite natural with hospital
Because we're stupid.
Because we're stupid. But I think we then had to make sure that we weren't trying to be funny. You kind of go, oh, let's do this because it's silly, and you kind of need the real grounded, sensible things to make the things that are kind of a bit off kilter work. So it's often something we go, well, let's not try and be funny, because I think,
in fact, we do that probably more than the other guys, because they think they're probably trying to keep on brief, and sometimes we go, it doesn't all have to be, you know, some things can be real and look real in the game as well. And I think it's the abstraction of the way things look and the humor is, and this is really just stealing your point here, Luke, is that if you can get people to sort of believe in the absurdity of our world, then it allows you to blur the lines between real simulated, you know, business management of whatever that business is, because the abstraction is the humor. So the way we go off on expeditions, if you think about it, the shorthand of that is so far off reality, but because of the abstraction using the humor and the visual jokes we do, that allows you to think you've gone on an expedition, you've had some drama, and you've come back with this amazing artifact. It all helps you get into that world and believe that you've done those things. So you're right. I think people do play these games and think, yeah, I'm managing a museum.
Yeah, I mean,
in a weird world.
To the point earlier, it is just a complex toy that you kind of got all these systems that are related, and you kind of go, well, if I do this and I do that, you know, it's you know, it feels like a museum. And
smells like a museum.
It smells like it must
especially when you zoom in and you get for example, to experience a tour guide leading like a group of Yeti and like a deep sea diver. Obviously, he's got big feet. That's so for people not understanding what we're talking about, like, because you're listening to the audio version, go check out the video version of this. This is just one of the many examples of the sheer realism of this game.
We have in our world, we have you know, people who are Yetis, and they're just a type of people that exist in 2 Point County. They're quite well to do. They've got a long history. They're from the sort of
colder regions.
They're in the pecking order of, you know, bipedal people. They're at the higher echelons, and we chose them to be kind of Yetis. And in our world, they coexist with people that look like humans, or people that might look like clowns.
Vampires,
We have vampires. We have ghosts that just live amongst us. So when you've got a world that ridiculous, it allows you to bend the rules of how you run a school, how you run a hospital, how you run a museum.
Well, for you, Luke, I mean, it allowed you to allow your guests to have different preferences and stuff.
Yeah.
So
and I was going to say, you know, when we were talking to the Natural History Museum, and I think we also spoke to some people who design exhibitions for museums, and they spoke about it in the same way that we talk about it from a kind of design point of view. They said we have different guest archetypes. You know, you have people that I think they've got special names for them. Apparently, they're all known in the museum industry. Like, I think they're like watchers, readers, runners, people that just kind of go through the exhibition, don't really care. And so
at the end,
gift shoppers, And so we kind of looked at that and we were like, well, we've kind of got that with the guest archetypes already. And so our guest archetypes, we have things like professors. They're just more exaggerated, right? So we've got professors who are just there for knowledge. They don't care about anything else, and they'll only donate once they get a certain amount of knowledge. We've got kids who don't read information stands, so you have to sort of educate them through interactive displays and things like that. You know, we've got Yetis as well, and deep sea divers who love fish. But I think we kind of, that premise is still there. It's that abstraction we've been talking about, right? Where it's like the core of what, you know, those real world exhibition designers is trying to do is there. We're just putting a Yeti on it and kind of making you go, yeah, I'm kind of doing that, right? And kind of trying to lift that up to be a bit funny and a bit lighter.
And you've got to remember, as a player, you're looking at this little ant farm of different types of people who want different things from the game. It's quite clever because it allows you to, at a glance, read there's a Yeti, there's a deep sea diver. There's a boffin because he's got elbows on his patches on his jumper.
Yeah.
These just help the player go, right, am I servicing my community of people that are coming into my facility? So it's more than just playing it for laughs. It's actually quite a clever way of helping you exploit the system.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think, and so I've been playing this for a few weeks now, as you can see from my really poor museum, like the architecture, I guess. But one thing that I realized the past couple of days is take some time and zoom in. Because you're missing out if you can play this like always zoomed out. And that's usually what I was doing. I was like playing this as like a proper management sim, right? Like you get all the numbers, you go, you need to work on that display or on that exhibition or something. Nice, cool. Very funny, very fun. But as soon as you zoom in and see all the little details and all the little funny bits that are happening in real time throughout the museum, that's when the game really like shines, and the polish that you guys give to this game really shines, because you really put a lot of like attention into these small details, right, Luke?
Yeah, I mean the animations, the little random interactions are great, but I think, Luke, you designed the buzz system, which I think makes you go in closer, because the way you design your display layouts needs you to go in close sometimes, because you're positioning things to get more of a high buzz bonus and a buzz effect from the people passing by, and that does probably force you in a lot closer when you're designing your exhibits than the previous two games. So I actually think that is help bring that camera in, because I agree. I watch players sometimes on the earlier games, and they're almost top down playing it optimally, and it's such a shame because all those nice little interactions you see do benefit from you going in closer. But I think the customization tools now and allow or actually force you in a little closer.
I mean, talking about sort of building on. I mean, all the customization tools were sort of like taking what we've done in Campus, but going way further than that. I mean, that was a big pillar for you, Luke.
Yeah,
I like Lucas. Let's call him Lucas. Call you Lucas.
Lucas. We kind of knew that we wanted to make the museums feel. A big part of the museum is the aesthetics, right? When you go in, you want to be wowed, and you want to sort of see something really impressive. And that wasn't necessarily the case with the hospital, right? Hospitals are very functional; they're there to do a very specific purpose. And so when we kind of looked at that's a really nice water fountain. So with museum, it kind of naturally opened up that space to do more customization, and I think we looked at the wall system as well. That's something we've not done before. So in museum, you can place partition walls and you can place one-way doors, and you can really tailor that kind of experience through the museum. And we kind of just felt it was a great time and a natural fit to sort of expand those customization options for players. And I think some of the things I don't know, Gary, if you go on a lot of the Reddit and screenshots and things, but some of the things people have made have amazing.
I think bringing some of it outside has really helped as well, because you can do more with your exhibits outside spaces, because I thought it was a real shame. In fact, initially in 2 Point Hospital, you couldn't change the perimeter size of your plot, your buildings. They were locked in. Then we adapted that in Campus, and then on Museum we allowed you to do more with internal wall building, as Luke's just said, but also encouraging you to build outside. Certainly, certain exhibits actually benefit from being outside,
such as Zooseum.
And now with Zooseum, we're making the outside space equally as important as the inside space. So I think we just want people to build where they want, how they want, and that's kind of trying to break. It's breaking the rules down. We're slowly deconstructing the game that hopefully our players will do all the designing for us.
Excellent. And you touched on Zooseum, which is the upcoming DLC. So again, I'm gonna have to ask. I get the idea of this, but I have to ask this question that a friend of mine asked me. We have monthly episodes of this show, and we share Sega news. And when you guys announced Museum, we talked about this, and one of my friends said, "Why don't they just do 2 Zoo?" Okay, so
good question,
that's a
Luke.
good question. Lucas?
Well,
very-
Luke, you actually gave an answer to this recently, I think. So if you can't remember it,
What
maybe
was the
you.
answer?
Well, I think it might have been Husky that said it, but the thing about a zoo is I think the game loop would be quite similar to Museum. So you kind of, it's a guest experience loop. The first two games, different loops, and then you kind of go, okay, we're making a zoo now. We're going to attract people in by having things in our location. I think the game loop would be quite similar. So you kind of, we didn't want to kind of go, in fact, a zoo would have been the right thing to do if we wanted to make lots of money, and just, we could probably use a lot of what we have and then make a new zoo. But it's going to be, I think a zooseum is a concentrated little bit of zoo fun, and there's no reason we couldn't.
Let's sample how this goes. But I mean, it's definitely something that we've had in our consideration in our big list of maybe in the future things we do.
Yeah.
I think that it's a DLC, so we obviously it's a great experimental space anyway, and really just getting quadrupedal creatures into our world. This is like
it's a big deal.
Big deal for us. We've never had anything as ambitious as that before.
Okay, never thought about that. Yeah.
They told us, they let us believe only 2 legs was possible for a very long time. So
they said no one animates 4 legs these days.
Double the animation. No, but seriously, the whole kind of nurturing system we've done and the welfare system that's been put in there, we don't like to basically just do a DLC, which is just a reskin of the same game with more levels. Everything has something new to offer, but this is by far the biggest offering of new types of content. So, Luke, I think you should probably talk to that more than I.
The only thing I was going to say is I think also we all just really wanted to see how far we could push museum systems, right? And see, we have a whole expedition system in there, and I think what we've done with Zooseum, where we've kind of changed it to be more about biodiversity and releasing things back through the expedition system. There's so many things there and so many systems that we can sort of change and mold and evolve, and I think it's just really exciting to see that, right? And I think it was more about, we wanted to see what we could do with museum systems and how we could do that, and instead of making a standalone zoo game, right? I think it just felt, well, we can do this here now. Let's try it. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how it goes. I think we're just excited to try something. And I'm super excited
about having a zoo anyway. We couldn't wait for a whole tentpole title. So
I think it makes sense to have animals in a museum, like having exhibitions of animals. That makes sense. I just wanted to ask this question because when my friend asked this question, I was like, I don't know. I was gonna explain because it makes sense to me to have this DLC, but then I thought, well, I really don't have a good answer for this, but it makes sense, right?
I mean, it's more conservation, obviously, than a traditional entertainment zoo, which felt that was one of the questions: is how do we pitch this so it feels like the museum is the right vehicle for it? Well, if you think about animal welfare, it is a kind of, and conservation, it's kind of learning about animals and helping animals rehabilitation, and it's also about teaching people about what about animals. Now, of course, our animals aren't conventional, but that doesn't matter. But the whole thing,
some of them are.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah.
But it certainly felt like a good fit. And but for me, when I play it, and I've not quite finished it yet because I did a complete playthrough, because we do a sampler now with our games, our DLC. We allow people to play a bit of the experience, and I'm not sure when this is going out live or whether we've announced this yet.
I'd say it.
Say it anyway. You know, I'll get told off later.
We'll get the exclusive.
We're allowing anybody who has the base game to play this and get into the game
for the
first act of the game.
I think that another reason to do really cool add-ons for the game is we'd love to be making more content for Museum in 2-3 years time.
Yeah,
that it'd be fantastic. And people have bought the base game. It's a big investment, and there's a big investment in your time in learning the systems and then becoming an expert. And then so adding more stuff in, like a zoo, they can kind of use that investment in their time and for us to give it a little twist, which is what Luke's done with some of the systems, to kind of turn things around a bit. So you're just playing in a different way with the live animals and stuff. So it's not just about kind of let's go for the tempo. If people love it, maybe we'd do a Zooseum 2, a second DLC with more animals. But we'll see what people like. And
it plays very different. The bit I was going to say is that I play this in a far more tranquil
state of mind.
Well, it feels a lot more like the whole theme. I don't think it's just the theme or the way it's been balanced by Luke and his team. But when I play it, I feel like I'm happy
for once.
Happy for once in a while.
That's the goal, Gary.
It feels less of a business.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It feels less about the money, more about the conservation and the finding of them and releasing them back into the world. It's clever how the same game in theory under the hood is playing in such a very different way. So I'm really impressed, and I nearly finished it, and I'm really loving it. I really think it's the best DLC we've made.
And I think that's it, right? We're sort of saying we're just excited to see what we can do with Museum, how we can make that feel different from each theme and things like that. And kind of what we were saying earlier, where I think players, they do expect, to come back, every few months and see something new. And I think we want to just add value to Museum and kind of see where it goes and see what players think as we continue to evolve it, right?
Excellent. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, I think that's right. You mentioned something interesting. You can have these different museums as you progress through the game, and having each one feel like a completely different experience, which is amazing. Like a game within a game, and like
absolutely,
that's really, really cool, and something that surprised me a bit, which I wasn't expecting coming from Hospital. Which is a little bit different, right? Yeah.
We did sort of get there in Hospital, but probably at the end of its life cycle, we started to try and change things up a bit, and probably too late, right? Whereas the first few DLC were more levels, which is nothing wrong with that. Some people just want more levels. Mm-hmm. But as we were starting to see, as all games have, a bit of a decay in sales, we were trying to reinvent the game. But we've done this straight away with what we've learned is there's no point holding ideas back. Let's just make new, different stuff with a game that is, pretty fresh anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think we with all our DLC, we're trying very brave and different things, and we just want to keep making content for it. We don't want people to go, oh, it's the same game just wrapped up differently. It doesn't feel like the same game. It feels like a completely fresh game.
Excellent. That's amazing. So I said I wouldn't keep you too long, and I want to keep my promise. So I have just a few more quick questions. So first of all, I really love the PA, like the announcements in all of your games, but this one in particular, spot on. Who comes up with this, with the lines? Is it like a one-man job? It's a team?
Yeah, no. Harry Puttick is our writer, and he comes up with all the Tannoy lines. And Jane, who works here, is the voice of the Tannoy. And she, in fact, when we did 2 Point Hospital, we were trying to find the woman who did the original theme hospital voiceover, and we're trying various routes to find, and just couldn't find her at all. And then So I got our audio guys to record Jane doing some tannoy lines, and I played it to
me.
to Gary and Ben Huskins, and I said, "What do you think of this voice?" And they said, "Oh, wow, you found her, have you? That's great." And it was Jane, of course. I think if they'd known it was Jane, who works at the office,
let me speak on your behalf here. Jane, if you don't know, is Mark's wife.
Yeah, but
she worked at
she's her own person as
She's
well.
her own person as well. But when we first started, there was only 6 developers, and because we really were on a shoestring, both Jane and my wife Karen did things around the office. So Jane ran the office in the sense of making sure that we had cleaners and electricity bills were in place, and Karen did the accounts and everything like that. So when Mark asked Jane to do it, and I've known Jane as long as Mark, pretty much, and I had no idea it was her. And I also had no idea she had any talent whatsoever, Mark. No, honestly, it was amazing, because I genuinely thought you'd got hold of, because we actually put a little shout out to try and find her, because again, the original Tannoy voice in Theme Hospital, that weirdly was also someone who was attached to our small team. That was the girlfriend of one of the people that worked on our team. So it was weird that we've done the same thing again. And Jane now, she has her own fan base. She's been BAFTA nominated. And often when people ask for somebody to turn up and be at an event, they don't ask for Luke or Mark or me or Ben. They ask for Jane, because she's got more celebrity status.
Well,
As she should.
I was at G Live with Jane and did a local thing, and this person came up to Jane and said, "Oh, can I have your autograph?" And she just said, "This is Mark Webley." And I went, "All right."
He walked off. Didn't want his autograph.
I don't care. I want you. But,
you're not the Tannoy voice in the game.
I think the very early Tannoy lines, Ben Huskin was writing, but when Harry joined us and took over the writing, I mean, he's a funny guy. He does all the writing. Well, not all, pretty much all the writing for the games.
Yeah. But Jane actually does a great job of getting the right. It's not. This is what I guess what acting is. You've got
the delivery is on point, I have to say.
She's really good at it, and she's got better at it as well. It's one of those things that now she kind of knows the character and doesn't need much coaching. And you know what's the best thing about Jane?
She's free.
She's free.
She's already on the payroll.
Okay, that's good. So even if she wasn't good, okay. Anyway, thank you for answering my question about that. The other thing I wanted to ask, we just got the Switch 2 release of 2 Point Museum. So thoughts on this? How different was it, maybe Luke, to develop this version of the game? Any special sensibilities here that you had to develop for that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me and Husky when we were kind of working through that is being able to play it handheld, right? Like we'd never done that with Museum, and I think it changed the way we thought about haptic feedback. And we had another look at how things feel, how they vibrate when you place things. You know, we'd always thought that was quite important, but we really it just feels different when you can see it, you know, in your hands and like that. So haptic feedback was a big one, and then obviously the code team have done a huge job with optimizing it and making sure that it runs really well. I think that's been an incredible, you know, triumph there. But yeah, for me it was just being able to sort of play it in your hands, move around, have a bit more of a mobile sense of it in terms of you're physically mobile. It made you think slightly differently about the kind of core loop, you know, and where natural endpoints are different for players who are playing it handheld than it is for players who are playing it at a desktop, right? I think we kind of had that with the Steam Deck as well.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a thing where it's like, well, now if I'm on the couch and something comes on the TV, maybe I'm pausing Museum, right, to watch something. Whereas we know you're on a desktop before. We know we've got you for a certain amount of time. And it kind of makes you think a bit differently about, you know, where your natural progression points are and where your natural jumping off points are. It's just interesting. But it was a great experience. And I think all really proud of what we've done on the Switch version.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think immediately most people asked was for mouse controls, because the Switch now has that functionality. Any plans of anything you can share about that at this point? Or
I think, as Husky said, we've got our top boffins looking at that and seeing if we can get that into a future update. I think very much like how we've been doing with all of Museum, we see the Switch 2 as a long-term game, right? And long-term support. So it's definitely something that we want to look into and continue to improve, and make sure that each platform of Museum has its own support and is as good as it can be on that platform. So I think, it's definitely something that we're looking at.
But I think we certainly wanted to make sure that mouse keyboard was a great experience and controller was a great experience. So kind of from day one, as we're kind of building the game, we're kind of working on both systems, because I think sometimes people will do a console version and then port it for the PC. PC is our lead development platform. We absolutely have to make it feel perfect for both systems as well, because when we go home, we're playing on consoles, we're playing on the Switch too, playing on PCs, so we kind of want that experience to be perfect. And I think looking at the mouse, for Switch 2, I think, as Luke said, we're definitely going to be doing that. But I think it's a great experience already on the controller, on the natural.
I think so too. I was one of the people who said, "Oh, there's a Switch 2 version. Maybe they'll utilize the mouse controls." But then I actually have it on my computer and also on Steam Deck. So I actually go from one to the other. I sometimes I play on the computer for some time, and then I save, utilize like the cloud saving system on Steam, and just pick up my Steam Deck. And playing it on the Steam Deck with the controller, for me as like a more of a long time console gamer, it feels more natural than playing on the computer with mouse controls.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I'm more of a console gamer, and when I come back to the computer version, I actually have a Mac. That's why I'm not saying PC. But when I go back to the desktop version, I always struggle for a couple of seconds to remember. So wait, how do you zoom out, zoom in? Oh, how do you rotate? Oh. So
it's always more elegant on the controller. Whenever we do capture, for example, we always capture on controllers because it's far more elegant. It really is. But these games did come out of mouse and keyboard first. So I guess Mark and I are probably more old school mouse and keyboard players. In fact, I'm even the worst case. I edge scroll rather than do anything with my, WASD key, and I'm definitely a primitive player when it comes to these kind of games. But definitely, I think the control scheme is so nice on console and on Steam Deck that I think it plays more elegant. The zooming around and flying around and rotating definitely feels much nicer.
I think it depends on what kind of gamer you are, right? So it's more intuitive for me, but I'm guessing like maybe people who are more accustomed to PC gaming probably feel more comfortable with the mouse, I guess.
Yeah. And I think we've just tried to make sure that both systems felt completely like they were made for mouse and keyboard, and it was made for controller. So, and that does involve some extra work and certain UI decisions or rework or for a controller version, and also the idea that you can actually just plug a controller into the PC and it will recognize it and then change the UI dynamically. So that kind of stuff was important. So when we went to the Switch 2, kind of knew we were kind of partly there, but then of course the rest of it only took months.
But it's I'm assuming if it's like on the Steam Deck, it's a brilliant experience controlling it with the controller. So and look, nothing stops. We continue developing. You release a game, but you continue your features and your quality of life updates, and we always react to our community. So
it's not fire and forget. It's a game that's going to evolve, and all our games have done. What we released back in the early days with 2 Point Hospital, for example, the game you play today is actually unrecognizable, really. People don't necessarily remember what it was like when we first launched it compared to what it's like today. We're often fixing, improving, adding features, and we evolve everything as we go. So yeah, we never say never, and we're always carrying on, continuing, improving the games we make.
Excellent. So my last question was going to be, so what's the next game? But I have a feeling you want.
It's a short answer if you want that question.
Yes, but because I want to get you guys a little bit longer here, you just got nominated for the Game Awards, so congratulations!
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah, well done. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
It feels exciting to be nominated. I think the Games Award is
biggie.
Is huge.
It is a big one.
Yeah.
So I think that's almost a success, right? It being recognized at that level of, awards is amazing. I mean, and it's difficult with simulation games because it's a broad church, and we still see ourselves as a really small little studio. So we never get ahead of ourselves and think, we're going to win anything. But just being nominated is amazing.
We'd love to win something.
Yeah, we're very good at being nominated.
Yes.
We're very good at being bridesmaids and never the bride. But but we're still happy with that. It's great. It's a great credit to the team.
Yeah.
I have to say, Luke, you were right in like pitching a museum game again. Yes. It is the right call. Excellent. Well done.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. It's mad. I think we're all just so psyched to be nominated. Even just nominated, it's amazing, right? It's great.
Absolutely. I mean, just talking about the museum, and of course, other things that belong in museums with what we've been doing with the Digiverse, where we've kind of done some fantastic IPs and games that we kind of think, and there'll be more of that coming as well. That just, it's brilliant to kind of have an IP crossover with Luke. Do you want to sort of talk a bit more about that? You've been
it's just exciting to work with other IPs, right? Like we started with Dredge. Have you played Dredge? It's a great sort of Lovecraftian fishing game, and so we've kind of got that in there, and the Digiverse is an expedition map where you can send digital experts and find digital exhibits, and so you're actually going into Dredge, you're getting fish from Dredge, and you're placing them into your museum. We've just done it for Vampire Survivors as well, so you can go and get you go into those levels and you get those things, and it's just really fun to be playful in other IPs and other games, and I think it's just a kind of sense of, we want Museum to be this really playful place that celebrates other games and celebrates gaming in general, and just a nice space to sort of call out those things, and it just feels different,
Yeah.
It's almost the beginning of this conversation when you were asking us, what did you play when you was growing up, or what did you do in the arcades? This is celebrating the whole history of computer gaming and making it exhibits in our world. So it's a really and we want to keep this going. We've got stuff lined up for next year. We can't obviously discuss because it's embargoed.
We've got stuff lined up for next month.
So there's a lot.
There's a lot. Talk about that.
No, but never mind that. But there's this is something we want to continue supporting, so people will get lots more free content without having to put their hand in their pocket, and it's exciting content, and hopefully it will bring other people to our humble little game.
And Luke, I think as you often said, even if people don't know the IP or they're not fans of one of the particular things, you're kind of working on the features that kind of anyone can play.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the cool thing about Museum, right? Where it's sort of, we have a fishing system already, right? You go and get fish, you put them in an aquarium. So that just very nicely ties into Dredge. So if you want more fish and you don't know anything about Dredge, you can still go to the Dredge Poi and enjoy it for what it gives to your museum. But if you know Dredge and you play our kind of Digiverse version of it, you kind of go, this feels a bit like Dredge, and I can see what they're doing, right? And so, ideally, it works for all people, right? People who don't know it, they get something cool and they get a new experience. And for those that do, it just feels like a nice little nod to a game that they really like.
Yeah, excellent. Those crossovers are always fun. Any plans or anything you can tell us about any kind of Sega crossover?
Yes. We can't probably tell you. We'll tell you offline, but
we can tell you off. There are some
secrets.
There are some exciting things afoot.
Yeah.
And actually, it's harder to get these over the line,
even
though we're a first-party Sega studio, than it is with some of the wonderful partners. But
that's not surprising at all.
No, we have got some amazing news, but it will have to wait. But we will come to you first.
That's
there
a promise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, kind of a promise. I'm old. I'll forget. But
I'll write it down. I'll send you.
You write it down. Yeah. Absolutely.
And do you know how you said you wanted to win something? So I'm delighted to tell you that you just won the Sega Lounge Seal of Approval. Yes, which is much better than the Game Awards.
I love the graphic as well. It came up. Look at that. Very professional. Thank you.
I actually send the physical seal to you guys. I'll send it to you.
You better do that because we won't do it.
I do that. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming, guys. It was really a blast to talk to you about everything. Hopefully we can do this again in the future because I had more questions, but I don't really want to keep you too long. Anything you want to say to people listening in? Mostly people who who are always looking at 2 Point Museum. I was one of these people, by the way, until a few weeks ago. They're always looking at. I'm sure this is fun, but I'm not sure if I should just take the leap. Should I try 2 Point Museum? Anything you guys want to tell these undecided people?
I'd give it a miss if I were you.
I knew he'd say something like that.
Oh no, sorry.
No. Well, look, I'll try and be the horrible commercial person here. Give it a go. It's whether you're a console player or a player on PC. It's a fun game. The world's a sad enough place. If you want just a world where it's fun and challenging, but it hopefully shocks and surprises from time to time, I would give it a go.
Yeah, I think it's a game that's very easy to get into. I think you'll find yourself playing and you'll find yourself hooked very quickly. I think if you're into deep simulations, you'll find it there. You don't have to engage with all the depth of the systems, but they are there if you want to kind of perfect everything and optimize everything. It's all there, and I think it's fun and it's funny as well. And I think keep the audio on, and I think you'll have a fantastic experience.
Definitely.
What about you, Luke? What would you say?
Yeah, just echo all that, really. I think if you want something that you can come back to in a few months and there'll be new things for you, right? Like we're dedicated to supporting this long term, and we're really excited to continue evolving it. So come on the journey with us and see where it goes next. But yeah,
and it's not expensive. It's not an expensive game by today's standards.
It's not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's value for money. Yeah.
And if you don't like it, Mark warned you. So yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it. Can you come back?
No, come back.
Give in. No.
Okay, guys. So thank you very much for coming. All the best for 2 Point Museum and whatever is coming next, right? And hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah,
okay?
definitely.
Cheers, Casey. Thank you
very
much.
Cheers, pal. Bye now.
That was my conversation with Mark, Gary, and Luke of 2 Point Studios. I hope you had fun listening to it. And I have to say, I'd just keep talking to the guys for hours if I could. They were great. And a big thank you to 2 Point Community Manager Leaf for their help in setting this interview up. Go check out 2 Point Museum. It's available now for PC, Mac, and consoles, including the recently released Switch 2 version. I've been having a great time with it, and I'm looking forward to sinking my teeth on the new content when it lands. And with some exciting Sega-related stuff happening too, apparently. or so I hear. That's it for this week's episode of the Sega Lounge. We've got new episodes every week, so if you enjoyed this week's show, go and follow us on your podcast app of choice, including over at terraplayer.com, our friends. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments below your experience with 2 Point Games. Let me give a big shout out to Lewis Cox, who's a monthly supporter of the show on Buy Me a Coffee. And if you'd like to support the Sega Lounge, either on a monthly basis or as a one-off, check out thesegalounge.com/support for ways to do that and help me with the costs of doing this podcast. Thank you very much for listening or watching. The Sega Lounge returns next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.